he told me that he would be like Mohan uncle. He was so much loved Mohan, and in his vision, Mohan was the greatest artist in the world. Up to Ammu's book releasing, Clint's father did not know what about my contribution to his life. After reading this book, he came to know what I have done for him. I was daily take him outing and show all the things in the road, some these kanas, etc. Butterflies, so many things. Then in my house, I made him crystals of copper sulfate, sugar, common salt, sulfur, etc. Made him. That everything he came to know only after releasing the book. So he came very pity and sorrow for me. Then he told all the people that I am Clint's mummy is molding him.
Hi viewers, I would like to tell you a very interesting and a brief anecdote. There was a spiritual master who was asked by his disciple, "Where is the creator? I can see the creation, but I can't find the creator anywhere. Please answer this question." The master replied with a smile. He said, "The creator is inside the creation. Even if the creator is gone, even if the artist is gone, the singer is gone, the song lives on, the art lives on, the painting lives on. That is the eternal footprint, signature that an artist leaves behind." Today, I'm immensely happy, proud, and honored to have with me for our YouTube channel a wonderful writer, Ammu Nair, who has written an incredibly beautiful work of art, a book on the life of a child prodigy, Edmund Thomas Clint. The book is titled, that is what first drew me to the book. I fell in love with this book in my first reading itself. And the title is A Brief Hour of Beauty. From the title itself, I just fell in love with this book. What a philosophical profundity. What a great sensitivity the writer oozes through every pages, every word in this book, paying a glowing tribute to the great artist from Kerala, Edmund Thomas Clint, who just spent 6 years and a few months on this planet. Today's conversation is with the creator of this book, the writer of this book, Ammu Nair. We are going to have very interesting insights from her, how she drew the inspiration in writing the book. She personally knew Clint. They were both childhood playmates. So we are going to listen to all those stories behind the writing of this book and the process of writing it and what is this book in a nutshell. So Ammu Nair, a warm welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Our viewers would be really happy to listen to you about your book, your creative journey. So let's start the conversation. Ammu, how and when did you first think of writing a book on this great artist, child prodigy, a genius, Edmund Thomas Clint? What was the starting point? Where did it first originate? We'd like to know that story.
So there was a book in Malayalam that was one of the first biographies written about Clint. And Clint's father, M.T. Joseph, wanted someone to translate the book into English so that, more people would read about him.
And that book is titled?
It's Sebastian Palithod's Prince of Colors. The Malayalam title is Nirangalude Rajakumaran. And I wasn't Clint's dad's first choice. So he wanted my dad to do it.
Oh.
Yeah, and my dad has written articles for College Magazine, and he has an authentic writer's voice. That's what I've always felt. So I was really looking forward to read his translation. And, I feel like my dad also has that sensitivity, the artist sensitivity. And I thought he really was the ideal person for it. But he said that his English is, a little old-fashioned. And he said, why don't we ask, someone else to do it? And so I had just come back.
When was this? Which year was this?
This was 2011, around that time. And I just moved back, and we were living in Bangalore. So Uncle asked me, I call Clint's father Joseph Uncle. So Uncle asked me if I could do this. And I'm a very hesitant writer. So I never saw myself as a writer. So I said, I was really honored when he asked me to do this, to be Clint's biographer. But I said, I don't think I can do this. And he said, it's a translation, so all the stories and everything, it's already there. So all you have to do is just translate the work. And it sounded doable. And Palithod's book is very, very well written, easy to read. It has that, a lyrical quality about it. It has a lot of poetic elements, stunning imagery, and the narrative style is very interesting. It's set through the point of view, the perspective of parrot. Because Chinamanti and Joseph Uncle had a pet parrot called Lakshmi Kuti. So Lakshmi Kuti was narrating the story. And it's like Editachin's Kilipate. And so all of these things were very exciting. And I was, getting ready to work on this assignment. And so when I signed up for it, I would call Uncle and Auntie from Bangalore. And then we would chat, for hours together, other stories. I kind of grew up listening to Clint stories. So I would say, remember, this is one of the incidents that happened right after the story that Palitod mentioned in his book. So Palitod had touched upon all the major events in Clint's life, but not all the stories, because it's one of those very readable short books. And so we would, share. It's like Uncle and Auntie would tell me. Uncle is an excellent storyteller, and Chinamanti remembers all the little details. So together, it's like listening to them. Yeah. It's like they would relive that, Clint's childhood. Yeah. And some of the memories are very painful, and I felt that I had, for the book, they had to relive those moments, but they still did it for the book, and I'm immensely grateful to them for that. So Uncle used to tell me that I could call him at any time of the day or night. He said you could pick up the phone and then call me the middle of the night, and then I would be more than happy to answer your questions. And I did call him, not in the middle of the night, but I would call them almost every day or every other day. And there were a lot of stories that I've heard. When we were growing up, I used to listen to a lot of his stories, because Clint's parents were friends with my parents, and then we would meet for Christmas, New Year's, Onam, and random days. So, and Clint's parents would actually hang out with my sister and me. And now I appreciate the kindness. Adults don't do that. And we're middle schoolers, I think, at that time. And growing up, we actually thought uncle and auntie were our friends as much as they were our parents' friends. And uncle would tell us stories. And, once he ran out of his repertoire of stories, he started telling us about Clint. And like I said, uncle and auntie would sit and talk about, the brief life. Clint only lived for 6 years and 11 months. But they had all these stories, and they would tell us about this little smile, this little crooked smile that would hang at the corner of his mouth, even when he's annoyed or pretending to be angry. So listening to the stories, I could really see Clint in my, mind's eye. So when I read Palithod's book, I thought, it's very beautifully written, but I thought, hey, I know a couple of stories that happened right after this incident. I know what led up to this conversation and all of that. So uncle said, when I suggested, why don't I just add these stories? It would be, a translation, but, there will be a little, a translator's note or something, and we could just add that with Sebastian Palithod's permission, of course. But then uncle said, why don't we write an independent biography? And so I had something in front of me, so I wasn't that nervous. So I said, okay, we could give it a try. And so you could, throughout the book, there are some of Palithod's imageries, I can, a reader could find that. And there's a beautiful ending to Palithod's book, and I have kept that ending, the last line.
From that sleep he never...
Right. I was really moved by that last concluding sentence, and I realized that I can improve upon it.
It's very touching.
Right. And with his permission, I did that. And actually, so the book, so Brief Hour of Beauty actually grew out of Palithod's book, Prince of Colors. And Stanley Anthony he's actually a distinguished artist himself. There are a couple of charcoal paintings of his that are displayed in a British museum. So he's a known artist, and he actually helped me with choosing like 75 pictures from 25,000 drawings and paintings of Clint's. So they have like cartons full of
Clint's paintings.
Yeah, Clint's paintings. And so choosing 75 is just, it's pretty overwhelming. So, when I used to visit them, they would like reverently, hand me these big stacks of his paintings. And what's really struck me is the simplicity of some of his line drawings. And I was like, I just want to put everything in the book. And then Sanal said, no, I'll help you. Like 75 is a good number, so let's stick to it. And then, since he has that artist's eye for it, he helped me choose the paintings. And then I remember, him sometimes, you look at the picture and then that there is that soulfulness With a few strokes, Clint has that imagery is like very sharp in the picture, and then Sanal would actually explain why this picture is so wonderful. Like for example, there's one with Krishna as a charioteer, and so there are these two horses. So one seems somewhat calm, and the other horses has that, what do you call it, a crazy look, frenzied look in its eye. And so Krishna is trying to rein in the horses. So they're like, two reins, and then Krishna is holding both of them in his hands. And then there's one, the calm horse, he has a relaxed hand. And then the other one, since the horse is trying to gallop, and it's like the horse is like baring its teeth. So there's this different angle to Krishna's elbow and shoulder. And he said, it's not just, so Sanil used to say that I don't like people calling him a child prodigy, because child prodigy implies that it's just because he's a child that this is great.
Yeah.
For any artist to have that kind of, just with a change of angle to elbow, he has created that feel, and his so that's the kind of take that I'm so grateful for Sanal for that.
So when was the book released then?
It was 2013. So I had all the, now that I have all the stories and we have, chosen like 75 pictures, I was ready to sit and write. And, I'm a very self-conscious writer. So, and I had signed up for it. So now, they can back out. And then I remember like sometimes I would just write something and then I'll sit on it. And then Uncle would tell me that, more, we're not getting any younger, so you may want to finish it. And then, I would be like so nervous, like, I really want to finish it. And then so finally I wrote actually the book was written, and it's you kind of enjoy that solitary process. It's just that, when like the publishing and all of that. And we found Prakash Books. It's a imprint. The actual publisher was Fingerprint Publishing. It's an imprint of Prakash Books, and they agreed to publish it. And then after that, it was just the process. And I owe a debt of gratitude to Anshul Arora for her editorial comments on the book.
I think that's a very pretty detailed, story of how this book came into shape. I was literally taken through the mind of the writer, the whole process of conceiving the story. See, one of the things that I loved, as I told in the introduction, is the title of the book. And one of the things that really attracted me about the book is the way the book is lavished with description of the city Kochi, and its seasonal makeovers. And the biography is written in such a way that against the vast backdrop of nature and its seasonal changes and all that, the story of Clint unfolds. That's a very beautiful craft about the book I really loved. So I would really love to quote a few lines from the book that would be the testimony for the viewers as well. This is how Ammu Nair describes Kochi. In summer, the lightened brightness of Kochi resembles a rained-on Van Gogh painting in all imaginable impressionist colors, scorched for a few days under the sun. Oh, this is beautiful. Could you just elaborate your, like childhood images of the city Cochin? And, I'm sure that it would have definitely triggered a lot of nostalgia while writing the book, because it's highly visualistic in nature, very picturesque in writing, and I'd love to listen to that.
So I grew up in the Kochi of 1980s, and that Kochi still had those rustic charms about it. There were a lot of little water bodies, lily ponds, all of that. And I remember my sister and I used to walk to this temple in the neighborhood. I would pass by these, empty lots with like a lot of greenery and little lily ponds and ditches that collects rainwater and all that. So it was much different from the Kochi of today. And I remember I read somewhere recently that if you can go to a very congested intersection and say that I remember the time when this was a farmland, that means you belong to a different generation altogether. So that was the Kochi that I grew up in. And my dad
That's a big creative trigger as well, that is, right?
Right, yeah. And then it's surprising that, our mind stores those images, even after all these years.
It's a creative reservoir.
Right. Yeah.
So your dad and...
Yes, so my dad had a Vespa scooter, and, we would... It's one of our favorite things during childhood was to take a ride, and he would drop us to school, and he's one of those people that you can never hurry him. So if you're late, he's not gonna rush you there. So if you want to get somewhere on time, you just have to leave early. So the good thing about that was that it would give you ample time to just see the scenery and then soak up the greenery around you. And one of the reasons why we left Kalur, that's where we were living at that time. So, and it was one of those epicenters of urbanization during that time. And we left the place because it was getting very congested and all the water bodies were disappearing. So he said, this is a city now. And, it has lost all its small town charms. So we moved here to, Trikakara, which is like the suburbs of Kochi. And so at that time, Trikakara was like full of these hillocks and, where there would be a lot of sort of undomesticated cows roaming around with their calves. And so he got us these, he got us a bicycle, and then we would ride the bicycle for like hours after coming back from school. So my sister, me, and our friend, 3 of us would just take the bike and then bike around the entire Cochin University. There's this campus. Just like, there was like, roads were like very deserted. And that was the Kochi that I grew up in. And we used to travel, most of them were like day trips to Ammu Nair and Tekadi, and some of them like overnight trips. And Clint's parents would also travel with us sometimes. So I remember like one time we went to Mangala Devi. It's a temple up in Western Ghats. And then at that time, or maybe it's still the case, there were these tight hairpin curves, and the driver was finding it really difficult to maneuver the Jeep. And he said, there's no road beyond a point, so, let's turn around and come back. And then everybody was terrified. Everybody in the Jeep was terrified. And then because it was a really difficult, dangerous drive. And so we were all like, yes, let's turn around and go back. And then I remember Clint's dad saying that if Clint was here, this turning around and going back would never happen, He he would make sure that we'll get there and visit the temple and come back. So yeah, so that's the and and then there is the
Yeah,
the
so these images, like, they acted as a trigger while...
it definitely did.
Yeah.
And Clint actually, Kochi and nature was a huge part of Clint's art. And, there's a lot of watercolor paintings, a lot of line drawings where he has brought in the beauty of Kochi. And I don't know if you know this, but Clint is the international ambassador, cultural ambassador of Kerala tourism, because his paintings really capture the beauty of Kochi in watercolors. Not just Kochi, actually, Kerala in general. There's these waterfalls, which is like, Adrumbili waterfalls, kind of reminds you of that. So Kerala tourism website has a lot of his paintings there.
The bounty of nature.
Right. They actually capture the beauty of Kochi and Kerala more than a photograph would.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you a very nostalgic person by nature?
I try not to, because, there's regrets are a part of, when you regress, you tend to do that too, right? You think if you relive those moments, and then, I want to avoid regrets, so I try not to, travel back in time.
The most surprising fact is that when I read the book, I just couldn't believe this thing, like, that Ammu actually didn't spend much time with Clint. Occasional meetings were there, but you didn't have too many interactions with the child. And most of the things you have written in the book are like narrated to you from by his parents. But when one reads it, it is like, she takes us through the mind of Clint. She has captured the soul of the genius Edmund Thomas Clint. So I would really love to read a few lines how she, writes about her friendship and time spent with Clint. Clint and I were born in the same year, 6 months apart. After Clint was diagnosed with the kidney disease, I didn't see much of him. Although he had done a painting of my sister and me on a swing under the green canopy of an unknown tree. A rare piece of evidence of a forgotten friendship with him that was probably just beginning to bud. Hazy, awakened memories still warm the cockles of my heart. Oh, so touching. I would like to really know, I'm really eager to know, Ammu, what kind of preparation or inspiration worked behind this, where you make every event or incident, any particular, interaction with kid or his thoughts and emotions. How could you bring so much of credibility and conviction as if you are with him throughout, at every point of his life? And that's what makes a great writer and an artist, and we find that throughout this book abundantly.
So my mom tells me that the first time I met Clint was during our housewarming ceremony in Kalur. I was 18 months and he was 2 years old. So our respective moms were holding us and they were chatting, and then, I can't remember what we did. So that was the first time we met. And I'm pretty sure that we met again a couple times, but we were like, little kids. And then when Clint turned 3 years old, that was when he was diagnosed with kidney disease. And then there was this brief period where he was really, his immunity dropped, and his doctor said the parents should minimize his exposure. So I don't remember us visiting him. But like I said, my dad had a scooter, Vespa, so he would sometimes pick up medicines for Clint from the doctor, Dr. Joseph Abraham. So Dr. Abraham was a really gifted homeopathic doctor, and he is the one actually, his medicines and his diagnosis actually gave Clint those precious, 4 or 5 years. And he could, there was that spell of creativity. And I'm pretty sure that we met, I'm not really sure, but I think we met a couple times during that period. And there was this one time when my parents visited Clint's parents without us, and Clint asked after us. So that means, we probably met a couple times, and then we played or we watched him draw. And there was this little window that overlooked an empty plot, in his studio, or his room overlooked an empty plot. And I vaguely remember looking through that window. And I'm not sure whether it happened after Clint died, or if it was during his time. And their apartment was on the 3rd floor, and you could get a really good view of what was happening on that plot. There was these creepers, and sometimes Clint would see a snake slithering down the vine, and little ducklings swimming around in that pond. So that's our memory of him, and the rest of it was created by the stories. And my dad was one of Clint's favorite people.
Okay.
He would sometimes visit Clint's parents. And they've been, my dad and Clint's dad were friends from their college days. So Clint's dad's schoolmate and my dad's college mate, they met through a common friend, Dr. Shivaramakrishnan. And then so 3 of them would sit and talk about, during their college days, politics and all of that. So, and when they got married, the wives would also, hang out together. And then, so I am pretty sure that, when the kids came into the picture, all of us would have met a couple times. But like I said, the stories were narrated to us. But Clint was always a viable, a palpable presence in our life. We had Clint's pictures in our family album. So he was like a friend that we never had.
Oh.
Yeah, so I remember, after Clint died, that's when Clint's parents and, our family used to meet like regularly. And I remember pretty much every celebration, like, Christmas or New Year's, we've spent with them. And Uncle said one time that if Clint were alive, the 3 of you would have been really good friends. And I was so touched by it because, Clint is a genius, and to have it just to say that, he would have considered us his, equal, not equal, but, someone he could, spend some time with. I was very honored by that. And when, there was these art exhibitions that Clint's parents would organize in Trivandrum. I remember my sister and I would go and volunteer, like, hand out flyers and things like that. And we would listen to these artists, like renowned artists, who would come and look at his pictures, and they would be so amazed by again, it was the simplicity and innocence in those lines. And Da Vinci, I think it was Da Vinci who famously said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Wow.
And these artists could see that, and they would be raving about Clint's paintings, and our little hearts will swell with pride because we'll be like, Clint is our friend. Yeah. So those are the stories that I try to bring into the book.
Usually, when we write a biography, I'm not saying all, but there can be tendencies to glorify an individual, but here, what I find is, like everything is participating when Ammu writes the life story of Clint. You will hear about the stories, the tales behind each painting of Clint, like 75 that you have chosen, and the seasons of Kochi, Kerala, the people who are in his life. So, like for me, the whole book is like a collage of colors, seasons, innocence, mysticism. It's like another beautiful painting Ammu has created with words and living painting, where you can listen to Clint. I felt like when I was reading it, I could even listen to the voice of Clint. That much of the intimacy with the soul you can feel in the writing. So this kind of a narrative structure, it's not a linear narration of incidents in Clint's life. Everything takes part in a vast canvas. So like mysticism, innocence, everything comes there. So I would like to have your comments on that.
So, Santhosh, I'm really glad that you read the book as I intended it to be.
Thank you.
There is, I don't know if I was asking the real, the real question about life. Like I was looking for some teachable moments, some insights, or for lack of a better word, like life lessons that I could learn from Clint's life. Maybe like Shakespeare said, it's a story told by an idiot, signifying nothing. So maybe I shouldn't look for insights or life lessons. But I read somewhere that our brain is programmed in such a way that we look for patterns in chaos. So maybe that's what I was doing. But what I tried to achieve in the book is that I was trying to find out why Clint's story was worth telling. He is a genius. He drew 25,000 paintings and drawings in a really short lifespan. It's like 2,500 days or a little more than that. So, and one of the answers that I thought I found is that consistency, that's rewarded by the universe. So for him, painting was like a tapasya. How do you say it? Like a propitiation.
Yes.
And if anyone want to rise above mediocrity, you have to have that. Like if your focus is not single pointed, you cannot rise above a certain level. And for Clint, I don't know how a 6-year-old could achieve that. And it wasn't like he didn't start painting at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like from 18 months he started drawing, and I don't know how he could have that single pointed attention, single pointed focus. And I think maybe he could achieve that because he had some idea, maybe not on the conscious level, but he probably knew that his days are numbered. And so he didn't have time for any distractions. So all he did was look at the world around him and then soak it up. And he had a photographic memory. And then sometimes he would take days before drawing something. Sometimes he would draw it immediately. Sometimes he would draw pictures over and over again. And so I think he knew that there was that sense of immediacy about him.
Urgency. Yeah.
Right, urgency about it. And I remember Chinnamachichi Clint's mom said, Clint's right hand was cramped because of the kidney disease, and he was drawing with it still. And then at some point it was hurting so bad that she started massaging his right hand. And then he started drawing with his left. Because, like you said, that urgency was always there. And Swami Vivekananda said that, most of the time we think of death as a macabre subject. Like, we don't talk about it. Considered to be an inauspicious topic to discuss. And Vivekananda always says that you should lean into it. Only then can you have this purposefulness in your life. And Clint had that. And I think probably it's because he was so driven, because at some level he probably knew that his life, he's only going to spend 25,000 odd days on this planet. And the loss is definitely there, the personal loss, because it's so death is so non-negotiable, right? It's you can't, once it has happened, that's it. It's a reality, and you just have to come in terms with it. And that's probably why it's so tragic. But I feel like when I look at Clint's life, I feel like he came, he did what he came here for. He achieved his goal. He came here to create beauty for the rest of us to enjoy. And, that goal was achieved. And he actually prepped his parents. He told them that he would fall asleep, he may not wake up, and he asked them to take care of his paintings. And he left with so much dignity. So that's one of the, quote unquote, insights that I wanted to convey through through Clint's life. And I think that was one of the goals that, the universe, if at all it had any intention to convey any insights, I thought it was one of them.
Okay, that's beautifully said. And that in fact takes me to the next question which I thought of asking you. So before that, I would like to tell the viewers, see, the point that Ammu was making and what I gathered when I was reading the book is, how she looks at the artist, this genius, as one of the blessings of the universe. And even if it's for a short period of time, the genius comes, sings that one song which he wants to sing, and leaves with a dignity. And that's the purpose of life, how they know their purpose of life. So the title of the book becomes so significant and so remarkable, A Brief Hour of Beauty. A genius like Clint came to this planet for a short period of 2,500 plus days. But those few days were really beautiful. So it also gives us a message, what life lessons we should learn to make these blessed moments of life beautiful. I would love to read a few lines which would substantiate the perspective of the writer, how she looks at the philosophical aspect of the blessings of nature and universe. Edmund Thomas Clint was born here, like the radiant lotus with its roots deep in the muck. Kochi, despite the scholar, enthralled Clint during his mystical sojourn here. And also at the outset of the book, a few lines of tributes that Ammu writes, I could see that complete spiritual surrender to the genius, to the universal energy to take the story ahead. I must read this. This is at the very outset of the book. The more I tried to solve the mystery, the more mystified it left me. How surreptitiously nature guards her secrets from the unready. But of course, you wouldn't understand. Because to you, that is to Clint, okay? Because to you, she revealed herself without reserve. Oh, I think that speaks volumes about the writer's sensitivity, spiritual awareness, which could capture the soul of Clint. My question is, Ammu, how does life reveal itself to you, Ammu, as a person and as a writer?
As a person, and as a writer, I wanted, I aspired to have that same persona, in my writing. So, my belief is that, well, I shouldn't say belief, my conviction is that we're all connected by, a oneness. Our life, like Native Americans would say, there is that interconnectedness. That's this web of interconnectedness. And it's not just among humanity, not just among human beings, but this entire universe. And it's that interconnectivity that I'm seeking from nature. That's what I want her to reveal to me. And has she revealed it to me? I don't think so. I probably understand that the butterfly effect, and that we're all part of a bigger system of things. I understand that in an intellectual level, but like Rumi says, we have to feel it in our heart, and not just in our brain, in our head. So that's the aspiration. And I thought Clint's life and Clint's art and Clint himself would be the right teacher to teach this, to reveal this to me, because his life was full of pain and suffering, But I think it was Anne Frank who said that around me I see a lot of cruelty. I'm misquoting, but what she said is that the gist of what she said is that there's so much cruelty that's going on around, her, because she lived through Nazi Germany, and she and her family were hunted down. So, and there was a lot of fear, but she could still sense a lot of hope, and and she could still see the beauty around her. So I think that's exactly what Clint was trying to do. There was a lot of pain, there was a lot of physical pain, there was a lot of fear of death, and but I think it was Ramana Maharshi famously said, when he had sarcoma, which is a really painful kind of cancer. He was asked if it was painful. Are you in pain? And he said, there is pain, but there is no suffering.
Wow.
Yeah, which means like suffering is felt
Optional.
in so it's optional and it's felt in the mind. The physical pain is painful, but when you add suffering to it, that's when you fail to see the beauty around you. So Clint and Frank and, Ramana Maharshi, they could all see the beauty in spite of what they were going through in their, physical body or in their personal life. So, that's it. And I think all ancient cultures or civilizations or religions, they try to talk about that, detachment from one's physical body and then connect to that underlying oneness. That's when you can actually, live a life, a joyful life. Otherwise, it'll be a mundane existence where, you are just concerned about your, day-to-day lives.
Survival.
You can never rise above if you don't get in touch with that oneness. So that's what I want nature to reveal to me.
Oh. And to a great extent, I believe it has revealed itself to you, and the book is one of the clearest, testimonies of that.
They say that at an experiential level, you have to feel it, and it's probably it's not like they say like the veil would drop, and that's when revelations happen. So, I'm just waiting for the veil to drop.
Let it happen naturally, right? Organically.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Ammu, you have a master's degree in English, and you have taught in colleges also abroad. So, like, I have read that you take interest in philosophy, art, literature, of course, and you love traveling as well. So, like, what are your, contributions in the field of these, fields of interest, and how they have shaped you in your creative journey, and then like any particular literature or writer or philosophy or philosopher you take interest in. Yeah, these are things happening.
So I used to teach at a community college in California. I was an instructor of academic writing, and I really enjoyed. I loved the energy of the classroom. And now that we have moved back to Bangalore, I quit my job. Apart from teaching, I've also tried my hand at a couple other, things like I worked as an editor for an art magazine called Dharani Souvenir. So Dharani Society is
Cochin.
in Cochin, yeah. So they organizes, Dharani Society organizes art festivals. So as a family, we travel a lot. We've moved around a lot. We used to. Well, my entirety of my childhood was lived in Cochin, and after that, except for a couple of years, we lived in Alapura, which is like
Alapi,
Alapi, which is the neighboring district of Kochi, and then so after I got married, I moved to California, and then 6 or 7 years later, we moved back to Bangalore, and so I had a infant kid at that time, and then we moved back again, and then now we're back in Bangalore again. So we have moved around a lot. We're like gypsies at heart. So and we love to travel.
And what kind of literature you take interest in?
Well, I did my master's in literature, And in college days, the main focus was, when I did my master's from Maharajas, the main focus was British literature. And and then I did a master's from San Francisco State University because I wanted to teach there. And then, their focus was mainly American literature and academic writing. And then so now I feel like the kind of fiction that I love to read is, where the setting is Indian. And I feel like, you connect more with the authors, other than, not just India, like other than, UK and US. Like it's like traveling to a different place. So I'm not a conscientious traveler. Like I love to go to touristy places, to like sleepy, remote, hidden gems of, but travel destinations that are like unheard of. And so whenever we go somewhere as a family, we try to visit museums, art galleries, and try to find out the architecture. And especially when I saw San Francisco Modern Art Museum, and I couldn't help wonder, that I wished like Clint would have his pictures, exhibited in an art gallery like that. And other modern artists as well, if not dedicated to his art alone, but, in Kochi, in his hometown, if we could have something like that.
Let's hope something like that comes.
Yeah, exactly.
And Ammu, your exposure to Malayalam literature is also pretty good, right? So who are some of the writers you have always loved reading in Malayalam?
I love O.V. Vijayan's style of writing. It's I was initiated into Malayalam literature, and Vijayan, and like it's Anand, but Vijayan is, O.V. Vijayan is in a different caliber altogether. And I read Legend of Kasak in Malayalam. I was so moved by that from beginning to end. And you could see that the spiritual traditions of his own religion and other influences, you could see all of that in the book. And anyone who has read Legends of Kasak would find many of literature from other countries, like some of the British literature, which is hailed as the best there is. You would see that they all dwarfs in comparison to O.V. Vijayan's literature.
So one more question before we conclude this brief conversation with you, Ammu. I would like to know, I'm sure all our viewers would love to know, what is your upcoming creative project or venture? Is it a book or a screenplay you're writing for a movie, or is it something else that we don't know? Yeah, please.
So there's this novel that I've been working off and on for the past 6 years, and now I think I can say that it's nearing completion. So I'm in that phase where I'm sending out query letters to publishers.
Okay.
So this book is titled The Salt Doll. It's an analogy. You're probably familiar with it. It's an analogy by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He talks about a salt doll that goes in search of. The doll wanted to measure the depth of the ocean, and what happens is it takes that leap of faith into the ocean, and it becomes one with the salinity of the ocean.
Oh, beautiful.
So what I've tried to do in the novel is that I'm trying to follow the journey of two girls. They, you know, they grow into women, and it's like, their adventures and misadventures in this world, and how they get lost in the wilderness of the mind, for lack of a better phrase. So that's what the novel is attempting to do. And I really love magical realism as a genre.
Okay.
So I've tried to bring in, the elements of magical realism in the book. There's a couple of, fables and myths, which is very unique to Kerala, that I've tried to incorporate in the novel. And one of them is, Yakshi. Yakshi is, it's like a Malayali version of the vampire.
Yes.
And, they're jilted lovers. And like Bram Stoker's Dracula, they don't travel, they don't make these intercontinental travels. They just stay where they were murdered. And
very territorial.
Right, they are. And they're waiting for lone travelers at, the dead of the night. So I grew up listening to these stories. My grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was really into Yakshi stories.
Okay.
And she I'm pretty sure that she knew that it's, we were too young to listen to these stories, but she would tell us these Yakshi stories, and it's a huge part of my childhood. And the other thing is Kavu,
these sacred grooves,
Right, for serpent gods.
Yeah. Yes.
And we have one in my mother's ancestral home. There's this Kavu and, a temple of Durga. And so, I've tried to incorporate those elements, because they say the belief is that these serpents are, pan-dimensional creatures. I shouldn't call them creatures, they're beings. And they are here to kind of guide us to a higher spiritual path. So those are the kind of elements that I've tried to bring into the...
Very interesting to, listen to the gist of what she has written, and we are all eagerly waiting for the book to release, and hopefully it would happen very soon. And
thank you.
All the best in advance for your book and all your creative ventures ahead. And this precious gift that you have given to the readers, to the world of art and literature, and to the genius Clint, A Brief Hour of Beauty. I thoroughly enjoyed and loved this enlightening, insightful conversation with Ammu Nair. I hope you would check out the book online and buy it, start reading it. Pay a visit to Kochi, visit Clint's house, see his amazing legacy of paintings. Edmund Thomas Clint. And this is the eternal tribute to Clint by Ammu Nair. Our channel is really, really indebted to you, Ammu, for accepting our invitation for this brief conversation. Thank you so much.
Pleasure was mine.
This is the book.